Don't forget to like and subscribe, and share your opinion down below. Today's stories are from the subreddit r/am I the a-hole. Check the description for the links and timestamps. Am I the a-hole? 17F. Foretelling my mother, 49F, and my aunt, 41F, to shut up about my cousin sisters, 12F, body? I come from a culture where it's normalized to make statements about your family members' bodies, especially the younger generations. As a kid, 12 to 14, I was always pretty curvy, plump, and had big boobs and a butt. Because of that, my family wouldn't really let me wear shorts, mini skirts, leggings, you name it. My body was a frequent conversation topic, and I was always told to lose weight, even though I was perfectly healthy. When I was younger, the comments, however endearingly said, would sting, but over the years, I've become quite neutral to them. I've noticed that as of late, my cousin seems to be going through the same thing. However, this time, the problem is that she's too skinny. That is a valid point though, as she is slightly underweight, but that is mostly due to her usual lack of appetite. It's always been like that, and a combination of genetics. She hasn't hit puberty yet either. She is a perfectly happy little kid, but I can't help but feel bad for her whenever a relative makes some snide comment about her body, as I know what it feels like to go through that. Last week, while visiting my cousin, my mother told her that she needs to put on some weight if she wants to look good in clothing and that curves would attract boys. My aunt agreed with her, and told her being this skinny was unattractive. I honestly found this entire conversation utterly disgusting and told my mother and my aunt to just shut up about her body, and that they should be ashamed of themselves for shaming a little child for not being curvy enough. I went on a rant about it. We left pretty quickly after that, and it was a shit show at home. My mom yelled at me for embarrassing her in front of the whole family and scolded me for being disrespectful to my aunt. She told me to apologize, which I flat out refused to do. I got a couple of very angry phone calls from the rest of my family, telling me I should know my place and remember that I'm just a kid and that they know way more about these things than I do. My cousin texted me later and told me that she appreciated me sticking up for her, but now her mother doesn't want me talking to my cousin unless I apologize. The whole situation really sucks. I can't talk to my cousin sister anymore, whom I see as my own sibling, and I'm pretty much being ostracized by the family, as disrespecting your family members is the worst thing you can do. The only way out of this is if I apologize, but I don't think I will, because that would mean that the body shaming would just continue eventually. Am I the a-hole for sticking my nose where it doesn't belong? Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. It's bullying and body shaming and it needs to stop. You defended your cousin, a literal child, from this bullying and body shaming. I'm so angry that everyone seems to value keeping the peace and harmony as opposed to doing the right thing. Stick to your guns, OP. Proud of you. Not the a-hole. You need to think about the long game though. You've seen that you calling them out isn't going to be accepted. Is refusing to apologize worth not be able to support your cousin? Are you likely to get kicked out if you continue to act like this? What's your end game here? Not the a-hole. You stopped what shouldn't have happened to begin with. Shame on them. They are making a big deal about it because you're right and embarrassed them for calling out their outlandish behavior. Why else would they rally the troops, as I call it, calling family to be on her side? Am I the a-hole for not paying for lawn services that were done by mistake? My husband and I live in a house that is almost exactly identical to our next door neighbors. Same color, same basic design. Our house just has a bay window where they have a picture window. If you'd only been there once you might get confused. We also have a confusing number system where each house is A and B, so consider my house 127A and the neighbors are 127B. They aren't townhouses or anything, but considering how similar they look in the weird numbering system, it tends to confuse first-time visitors. We came home from work, we worked 12-hour shifts at the same hospital, and discovered our yard had been landscaped, and after some confusion our neighbor arrived home and that's when we learned that it was supposed to be her yard that was landscaped. She called the company and they sent a manager down. He made some calls and realized that GPS had misdirected the team that did the yard to our house instead of our neighbors and that they hadn't been careful enough to check the number on the wall before barreling ahead. Of course, neighbor still wants her yard done. She paid them after all, so the manager refunded her and promised he'd send a team out to do her yard as planned on the company's dime to make up for the mistake. She went away satisfied with the mediation. We did not. The manager asked us if we wanted to keep the landscaping that had been done since it would be extra work on his team if they had to remove everything from our yard. We said yes, thinking that we'd be comped as well for the mistake. Not that easy. Manager tells us what our neighbor paid for the exact same treatments to the yard and he then billed us for it. So we told him to have the landscaping removed and to fix our yard because we weren't paying for their mistake. Our situation didn't mediate well because now this man is threatening to sue us. We're not even sure he can do that. He says that if we keep the landscaping and we don't pay, that's the equivalent of stealing. Not sure if that's entirely correct or not, but the owner of the company called us yesterday and he was really rude and made some threats about involving law enforcement. My husband is beginning to think we ought to just use our stimulus and pay them to shut them up. He concedes that the yard is nicer now and we were planning on having our yard done anyway, so why not just stalemate? I don't see it like that. We were provided a service we neither approved nor requested and were now being punished for someone else's mistake. We told them they could take their materials back and fix what they altered so the yard is back to how it was originally, but that wasn't good enough either. It's stressing my husband out and making me angry. Are we a-holes or is the company an a-hole, or are we all a-holes? Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. Send the company a registered letter setting out the facts and that you are willing to have them come in and remove their work and restore your yard to its previous condition. I doubt you can be held liable for their error, assuming you weren't home when they landscaped your yard. Not the a-hole. In no way should you legally or morally be held responsible for the mistakes of this company crew. You weren't even at home to correct the error. It's not like you knowingly let them fix your yard for free. Not the a-hole. You didn't ask for this service. It was their mistake. Consult an attorney, but I can't imagine a scenario where you are obligated to pay for a service you neither authorized or requested. They don't have a legal leg to stand on. It seems more likely that you'd have a case for trespassing since they came onto your property without your permission and made alterations, also without your permission. They are just trying to bully you into paying money that you don't actually owe them. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad to buy stepsister old consoles if he wants her to have them so bad? So I, 16F, started babysitting 2 years ago. I then moved from that to a retail job back in October. I have saved some money and decided to indulge in getting some vintage consoles. Consoles I missed out on, but see games I want to play. I found places that sell them pretty cheap. I've always been a gamer and it's the one passion I'm glad I can explore more through the older stuff. Ever since I got a 3DS, not one of the older consoles but I wasn't allowed to have before, my stepsister, 14F, has wanted to use them too. Mostly the PlayStation and Nintendo consoles. I have always said no. She's careless and demanding, and to me that's the number one reason she isn't going to get her hands on them. One day we got into a huge fight over it and she laid on the guilt trip about siblings always sharing, how I'm her big sister and should include her in this stuff. I told her it wasn't going to work on me. She ran to tell my dad, who has bent over backward for her since he married his wife 5 years ago, and sure enough he tried to do the same again. He told me they weren't really mine since I was his minor kid, they were his, and he wanted me to share with her. I told him he didn't earn the money. That if he argued about him paying the bills I could just store them until I move out. He told me to stop being a brat and stop hurting my sister's feelings. I told him if he wanted her to have an older console so much he needed to go out and buy her one, and let her be careless with that, not with something I paid for. That way it can be something new to add to the list of things she's broken, both laptops for virtual learning, the remote for our main TV, the drawer to my desk, 2 of my phones, 6 of her phones, her little keepsake box that my grandparents got for each of us the year my dad married to her mum, the family console, 3 discs for video games, and not to forget my necklace that my mom bought for me when I was a baby. He told me I shouldn't be keeping track, and that they have always done their best to replace what was broken. I replied that he and his wife should teach her how to be less destructive and it's not my job to do it. Then I pointed out not everything could be replaced or fixed easily. He told me I was behaving like a 6-year-old instead of a 16-year-old and that I had no right to talk back to him. That was 3 weeks ago and he's still mad about it. Am I the a-hole for how I talk to him? Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. You're actually being very reasonable and articulate about the issue, and your dad is being a child. Yes, siblings normally are encouraged to share, but that's a pretty reasonable worry when the person you're sharing with doesn't have respect for someone else's things. He's mad cause you're making sense. Not the a-hole. You're actually the most mature one here. It's a shame you have to raise yourself and your father. No, the consoles aren't is just because you're a minor. That's the dumbest thing I've heard all week. You worked hard, you earned them, and you take care of them. Where's your mom in all this? You need someone to have your back. Not the a-hole. You are under no obligation to share, to be honest. You paid for it yourself and your dad was way out of line to say that they're his since you are his kid. Honestly, I wouldn't trust either of them and would probably store them to keep them safe. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did. Don't forget to add me on Twitter, and check the shirts I post on Teespring if you're interested. Links in the description. Until next time.